All right, we are very pleased and excited to be joined by one of my favorites, Tony Hale. Thanks for joining us. How are you? So we have a lot to talk about today, but how are you before we talk about your projects? Tony Hale, the man, how are you doing?
How's the man doing?
Yeah.
The man is doing good. I was with my in-laws for about a month on the East Coast, and I loved them, but we were ready to come back. So we're back in LA.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
for many people, being stuck with your in-laws could be bad, but it sounds like you liked it. So congrats to you for marrying into a very nice family.
Yeah, they're really good people. A month was too long, I think, but it was fun. It was good because we never go to the East Coast because we're on the West Coast, and my daughter. It's a good chance for my daughters to see her cousins and all that stuff.
Well, two projects we're going to talk about. One has a finale coming up. Another's a movie that just came out and getting some really great reviews. A lot of people loving it. But we'll start with the Mysterious Benedict Society finale dropping on Disney Plus August 6th, which I almost just said it's next month. Not at all. It's already August. It's absolutely August 2021 already.
Yeah.
Between this, Forky, are you like officially like in the Disney stable now? Like, are you a Disney man now?
I don't know, man. You'd have to ask the bigwigs. But it sure is nice to be asked to do stuff with them. I mean, Forky was an absolute blast. I do remember them. I remember the call being like, "Hey, they're thinking about you for the next Toy Story," and I was like, "Great!" And then they were like, "You're gonna be a spork." And I was like, "Oh wow, that wasn't even in the realm of thinking of where I was going." But that was really fun. And this show I really believe in this show, and it's so fun and beautiful and has a message that I really feel honestly that we need right now in the world.
Well, between this and Toy Story 4 too, it's like obviously the two things when it comes to you and as fans of your work, the Veeps, the Arrested Developments, both raunchier, one network TV raunchy, one HBO raunchy. But now, I mean, both of these are, a Mysterious Benedict Society, that's a YA thing. Obviously, Toy Story is Toy Story. It must be nice. And you already mentioned children as well. Like, it must be nice to kind of do something that you like that can also be for a different audience that is also well received too.
Yeah, I will say I remember recording Toy Story when I was shooting the final season of Veep, and it was a little back and forth in the mind a little bit, like just the creativity of insults on Veep is shocking. And just to kind of go from that world to a curious spork, that was a little challenging, but it was fun. Every now and then when I was recording, I mean, I'd probably say a little too many Veep-isms, but I don't think those will ever get out.
Was there a YA series with you maybe growing up or something that you appreciated as a younger Tony Hale that you may have channeled for this?
Channeled? I mean, I was a big fan of Willy Wonka. I mean, that's not a series, but I loved Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and Benedict's very affable that way. I play twins in this show, and the one twin, Mr. Benedict, is just this really loving, affable, quirky dude. And so I grew up loving Gene Wilder. I think YA it's not a series, it's a movie, but I loved The Goonies. It was always just every turn, what's going to happen. When I remember her playing the piano on the bones and it opening the door, and just all that curiosity and the puzzles. And this show has a lot of those kind of curious puzzles. And because the thing also I like about Goonies, they didn't have magic powers. They just had their curiosity, and that's very similar to this show.
So that actually bleeds well into my next question, was just like, it's a very eclectic role, I think, so you get to dig your teeth into it as an actor, I'm sure, which is great. Is there anyone maybe that you drew inspiration from in real life for this type of role? Because it is I feel like you need to draw something from other characters outside of the fictional world as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do get that question a lot, and I feel like the worst actor because I never really have the right answer. But I do think, I mean, I don't know what this says about me, but I think I guess for me to play these roles, I have to find myself in them, honestly. So rather than because in my process, if you could call it a process. And my process, if I just try to play somebody else or play an idea of something, then it doesn't come off as authentic for me. But if I, like, for instance, Benedict is very encouraging and loving, and I'm curious, and I find that in myself. And Curtin, who's typically, the quote evil twin, but I would just say misunderstood. He, he feels very, he's very manipulative, and he feels mistreated. And the truth is, I've had those moments in my life. So I kind of have to find that within myself, or I'm just playing that idea of them, if that makes sense,
Gotcha. I mean, that does make sense. So I'm not caught up on the series yet, but I'm a few episodes in. And I think that so far, I think the show is very good, but it could be excellent if Wolverine was involved, because when I watched this, I'm like, you're kind of like the Professor X of this group of misunderstood children. And every time I'm watching, like, you got this big man, or you got everything. It's all these like Professor X-isms. I'm like, if it just had Wolverine involved, it would be phenomenal, top tier show. Would you agree with that?
Of course, cut to if we get a season 2 and all of a sudden there's knives on my fingers. And I'm like, listen, guys, this guy said Wolverine, he felt like it would bump it up a notch. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, that turn, all of Freddy Krueger just like jumped in. I don't know what's going on.
Look, you're both owned by Disney now. And it'd be a very easy thing for them to put in. That's all I'm saying.
That's a really good point. That
would be a great pitch meeting to Disney that I'm sure they'd love you for. It's like, hey, what if Wolverine showed up? You guys own those properties. Yeah.
Just put knives on your hands around children. That's going to go over great.
August 6th, the finale for that. You can catch up with that now on Disney Plus as a podcast noted as Disney Shills. You know where to go. 9 Days, though. New movie just came out. Mm-hmm. Stellar cast. Winston Duke, Zazie Beetz, Bill Skarsgård, Benedict Wong, yourself. I'll give the quick synopsis on here, and then you can kind of go into a little more if there's a better way to put it, because all synopsises on this movie are rather short. Man interviews 5 unborn souls to determine which one can be given life on Earth. But this is a movie that we've had a bunch of people talk about to us, like our fans, and a lot of people seem to really kind of connect and catch on with this movie. What can you kind of let everyone know about 9 Days?
This shows how maybe not in touch I am, because when you said 5, I was like, oh my God, I thought it was 6. So maybe it is 5. So maybe I need to brush up on my stuff. It's honestly, man, I remember when we started shooting this movie, I felt like it was just one big question. Kind of going up to the director, I was gonna be like, okay, so who are we? Where are we? And there was always, I wouldn't say confusion, just this like, what's happening? And then when I saw it, really, even though I was in it, when I saw it, it clicked a little more. I wouldn't say purgatory is not the right thing. It's just these unborn souls that really want the chance to live. And Winston Duke is he decides. And it's this process that we all go through. And when I say it is just the most beautiful movie, Edson Oda created just such a beautiful film. And it really kind of puts in, I would say both Benedict and this, it really kind of, to me, is needing something right now, because for Benedict, it's about rising above all the noise. There's so much noise out there and trying to find the truth. This is about coming away from the pandemic and being like, man, I took a lot of stuff for granted. And these unborn souls want to live. They want the moments that we have every day that I'm taking for granted, and it's really, it's a stunning film. It really is. It
is funny you say that too, because not to Disney-fy this whole thing too much, as I just made a joke about us.
Go ahead, Disney-fy away.
Soul was another movie that came out, literally a movie called Soul, where like that was kind of that same idea. It's like, I'm sure this is a movie where if it had come out, 2-3 years ago or 2 years down the road, you probably still have the same reaction. But there's something about certain things. We just did an interview about the show Ted Lasso too. It's like certain shows and movies that are coming out like right now, would have still been well received, but it's just something about this climate that kind of gives them a little more an easier connection level.
Totally. And there also, this theme is not new. This kind of appreciating every moment and life and the simple things. But you're right, like after what we've been through, in addition to the way Edson told this very common theme, that's the thing that I appreciated. It's a pretty, you see this theme in a lot of movies, but just the way he did it and there's these 6 people, 5 or 6, can't remember, interviewing for the chance to live. And Winston kind of decides. It's just incredibly creative.
That's an Oda's directorial debut, and he also wrote it as well. He was a well-acclaimed commercial director before this. How would you say he did as a quote-unquote rookie?
Here's the thing. This is not just blowing smoke, but I have worked with, I've been in the business for 25 years, and I've worked with a lot of directors. And I would say the most unsettling thing is when a director, you kind of feel like is not captaining the ship, and the whole time you're like, okay, so where are we going and what's happening? And just, you kind of the whole time are just, I remember, I'll never forget, I did this commercial years ago in New York, and the guy, all he said was like, I don't know, I'm thinking monkey. And we were just like, monkey? What are you talking about? And so we just kind of did our own thing, and everybody just did it. It was just this unsafe, weird feeling. Edson, we always knew he was captaining the ship. He did not have to be an ass about it either. Many people think if they captain the ship, they got to be kind of an ass about it. No, he was super respectful, calm. I would never think it was his first film, genuinely. So, yeah.
There's like a bunch of different candidates, like you were saying in this movie, and some of them are curious, some of them are pessimistic. I'd say that your character was the most normal, but how would you describe it? Because I think that especially at the end of his moments, I feel like he's a very sad guy that uses like humor to deflect how he actually feels, and that leads to him being very angry inside, which is a very real thing. That's something you'll see in real people in real life. Yeah,
I would totally agree with that. I mean, and he just wants, when heavy stuff is approached to him or Winston talks about it, he's like, hey, let's, can we just have a good time? Can we just talk about something else? He deflects, to your point. He's very much that. I mean, I relate to that. And that's what's kind of cool. I can relate to each candidate. They bring something to the table that I think we all do. And my character, to your point, is very much about deflection. He's like, can we just like sit around and have a beer and just talk? Do we have to get into this heavy stuff?
You really run like the gamut of emotions in this too, because like we were just saying, like you're doing like laughing, funny, like joking around stuff, but you're also in some very sad moments, some very angry moments. Like that's a lot of different emotions to try to portray into a single character. How do you sort of like flip the switch like that?
It's all in me, man. It comes from so much pain. I was doing a Q&A the other night, and they were talking about Veep, and I was saying how, for 7 years, this character was just beaten down by Selena and Veep, just like emasculated. Buster was emasculated. So I think there is a part of me, anytime I get the chance to a character kind of fight back, and it is just like, I run with it. It is like the best day.
I will actually splitting, because we'll have like one or two more things on this movie, but I do want to just jump off what you just said there. Has there ever been like a concern with you on that? Like you always hear, I think the show you probably hear it most, at least in our culture now, is like Seinfeld, right? They joked about it on Curb, ironically, with Julie Louis-Dreyfus. But was that ever a concern for you as Veep continued to just like chug along? You're like, do I want to be Gary? Do I want to be Buster? Just like forever and ever?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, I remember after doing Arrested Development, that was my first big gig, and Buster was like a cartoon character. He was the most nervous, anxious, paralyzed person, and I remember after it thinking, "Wow, this." Well, let me say this: I understood that after doing that, someone's not going to be doing a movie and needs like a lawyer and be like, it'd be good for that. The guy who played Buster Blues, it was. I needed to put myself out there and, showcase stuff and many meetings, many auditions, just to kind of show the whole person of me, because, I understand like that's all they saw. So it's not like they could be like, hey, put him as, the teacher or president in this thing. They didn't know. So I really needed to take the time to kind of showcase that.
Did you even have to turn down some things too? Where you're like, no, I can't do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. There were times and not necessarily in the beginning. I would say now more, I'm a little more kind of discerning as to kind of those things. Yeah.
Very intimate movie too, and a lot with Winston Duke. How was the chemistry with him? Because he's obviously been an actor that's started to like his name's been popping up everywhere in the last couple of years, from the Marvels to the Usses of the world. How was getting to work with him?
Great. I mean, we shot it in Salt Lake it was only shot, I think it was like 21 days, the total shoot. And I was there. He was there the entire time. I was not there the entire time. So you don't really honestly get that much time to hang out when you're doing independent film. If you're doing like a 3-month, big budget thing, you get a little more time together. But we didn't really have that much time because it was so focused on the work. We had to get stuff done. The budget was limited. We had a little rehearsal, which I was very thankful for. But he's a great guy, and he's got such a presence. You just you walk in and he's just got Winston Duke presence, But unfortunately, we all didn't get that much time to hang out.
9 days out in theaters. Go check it out. Again, buzz around a huge. And then a reminder, Mysterious Benedict Society finale coming up in Disney Plus. We got to talk about those other shows we just talked about, though. Absolutely. My favorite show of all time is Arrested Development. How many have we talked to who've been in that show? We talked to Ron Howard. We've talked to Ron Howard before about it, but I don't think we've talked to many people. We talked to the Russo brothers. We'll get to them in a second. But I have to ask, what is your personal favorite running gag or joke from that whole season?
My God, dude.
I know it's a tough question.
That is a really hard question, man.
There's literally NPR made an index of all the running gags and where they are placed in every episode. And I know Buster, I think, has the longest one. So it's definitely a tough question.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say mine's not associated with me as much. My favorite, I would say the Blue Man Group is him going, which one was it? I think, did he go to a support group for depressed men thinking it was Blue Man Group? Yeah. That whole thing. And then the blue handprints, and I would say just David dressing up in all the costumes, Miss Featherbottom, all that kind of stuff is just like, but that, or You Always Leave a Note was another really great running gag. I will say I was doing this is why this show is so dense and so layered, and I, to this day, miss things. So I was doing this interview sometime, I think it was over, I don't know, it was like one of those, it had an audience and stuff, and they were talking about, I was talking about one of my favorite jokes was when the doctor comes out and I just had my hand eaten off by a seal. And I said, and the doctor comes out and he goes, he's going to be okay. And then they go, oh, but he left his arm. And somebody in the audience goes, no, he said he's going to be all right.
All right.
And I was like, that was, by the way, this was 15 years after I shot that episode that I never got that joke.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. And stuff like that happens to me all the time. Like I just miss the joke. But I thought it was funny even without that. The doctor's like, yeah, he's going to be fine. But he lost an arm. I had no clue about the all right.
He's going to be all right. Yeah. Have you the world's worst doctor. Have you ever, not to pump another website up, but have you ever seen the NPR running gag index for Arrested Development?
No.
Absolutely look it up. You have to just look up NPR Arrested Development. They put every single running joke and where it comes out in every episode. It's like a stunning piece of art. It's amazing.
Yeah, I probably should see it because there's half of it I'll probably have not known.
The Blue Man Group thing, he shows up and he says, I feel like a fucking idiot. That's what he says when he My favorite, everyone listening to this pod is groaning because I mention this joke all the time. But my favorite is for sure, because it's the idea that this was on network TV, is when Michael walks in, when Lucille walks in and he says, hold on, get rid of the C word, the boat. And Lucille says, I'll leave when I'm good and ready. And that is just, it's one of those, like,
again, missed it. I don't remember it. And now I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. That's when people come up to me and they talk about jokes. I just forget them. I just completely forget them. And that's hilarious.
We just mentioned the Russo brothers, though, and we talked to them a little bit about it. We obviously talked a lot of Avengers, and I wish we could have talked more about Arrested. But I mean, did you have like any idea back then that they would be people behind the biggest movie of all time? It's crazy.
Well, I think what I really appreciate is, this is why it doesn't surprise me, is because they're really good dudes. And not only, I mean, they're obviously creative, they're funny, they're incredibly hardworking, and they're really, really good men. And I'm telling you, that equation It's like a Ron Howard, someone who they treat people with respect. They're kind, they're funny. They don't take themselves too seriously. It never surprises me when they have that kind of success because people want to work with those kind of people.
In the show, Buster and Lucille, I think, are very like a paired characters, like in the same way that a lot of the other characters were as well. But I feel like your chemistry was so important, and I'm sure that you and Jessica Walters, who was a major loss, obviously, was important as well. What was she like to work with, just off camera, not even just how you guys worked on camera?
Yeah, she was. When she passed, which is really incredibly sad. I put in there that she was a force. Like, she was genuinely a force, and her. Just no one had timing like her. Like, literally, she would just what's my favorite joke that she did was about the banana, and she said, "How much can it cost, Michael? $10." And like, just that is I mean, just I could just sit there and listen to her. And when her and the other Lucille, Liza Minnelli, and just that competition. And then my character dated two Lucille's, like how incredibly messed up that is. Or at least I wanted to date my mother, but like I ended up dating, Liza. And by the way, Liza took my wife and me out for lunch one day and sang for us in the backseat of my car.
Oh my God.
And she just would tell us stories about her growing up and how she was raised on the MGM lot. And she was so lovely. And her stories never came from a place of ego. They just came from a place of like, listen to my life, like listen to this life. And I don't know, she was just, I consider myself incredibly, I'm very grateful to have worked with both of them.
Two absolutely incredible women. Another show that you're on, we want to talk about is Veep, obviously. Buster and Gary are very different characters, but they're also sort of similar in a very broad sense. So how did you guys like work to make sure that there is like there's big differentiation between those two characters?
Yeah, sure. Buster really was paralyzed in fear. Like it took a lot to get even to the pharmacy. That was like, so he had such a love-hate relationship with his mother. Obviously, those came out when he would go on those massive cussing rants. Whereas Gary just worshipped Selena. He had absolutely no disdain or hate for Selena, none. And had rose-colored glasses. She would verbally abuse him, and he would just bounce back like just this kind of codependent, it was a very dysfunctional relationship. And and when people didn't think that she could be president, he was like, why you're saying that to Jesus? Like, why would you? So his adoration and worship of Selena, and just also the fact that he could maintain a job and was actually pretty good at his job, that was a lot of the difference. Yeah,
I think Veep just had such an incredible sustained success. Well, obviously not just me. I'm the only one who thought that. But it had such sustained success. And you see a lot of comedies just in general recently, they don't come out often on movies anymore. I think a lot of actors you see pushing towards just doing series. Is it easier to execute comedy in a show versus doing it in like a movie where you have like X amount of time to make something play versus on a series where you can like long play, you can have like long gags like you were talking about the Arrested Development, or you can just have just more characterization over like the length of time?
That's a really good question. I mean, performing them a film or a TV feels the same because I think you always kind of have to come from somewhat of an honest place. But in terms of whether they grab an audience, to your point, I think, a TV series, if you have that quirkiness, it might take some time to kind of fall in love with the characters and see their path out, and maybe that, I don't know, maybe that is the difference than with the movies. But I know that because Arrested, look at Arrested, like that, people didn't catch on until years later, when they got the DVDs and they started watching them. Because initially they were like, what is this? Like, if that was a film, that might have never have taken off, so it took that time to kind of grab that audience a little bit.
Another one that just came to my mind, I have to mention it because I never talked about it on this show, is the opening is season 4 which I'm a big season 4 guy. Because I know the order of season 4 is different. I always say watch it twice. There's so many things. Bar being "and" by Jeremy Piven, just like the credits of Entourage. I think that's just one of the most.
Well, let me just tell you right now, never knew that. Never knew that.
The bar is, I mean, it just, because obviously that's the credits of Entourage. Yep.
Never knew it. So I'll be looking at that and Googling that tonight. Yeah,
it's it's an all-time sight gag. Kendrick did just mention movies and TV though, but another person who I don't think I ever really appreciated kind of his involvement with the show until Death of Stalin came out was Armando Iannucci as well, though.
Yeah.
The humor there, I mean, it feels like he's got some comedic genius in his showrunners as well, which we've talked to a couple of showrunners. Like the team behind that show just has to be an all-time team. Yeah,
it really is. And what I so appreciate is to your point, it's Armando Iannucci and then his friend Simon Blackwell, and even when David Mandel took over the show, they with comedy, they were incredibly smart because they always had a team of writers around them. And because they knew that is the best way to create comedy. When you bounce off of each other, when you try to refine a joke, when you have a lot of alts, like they know the power of that team. And so because I think with comedy, if you think, well, my way's the only funny way, you're hurting yourself. You got to have that back and forth.
And then it leads to what is a landed finale. That had to be a fairly large relief. And I know, like, I don't know where you stand on this, but we talk to people all the time. It's like, reviews and opinions, like you do your work and you're proud, but to have people like the finale of a long love, that has to be satisfying.
It was satisfying. And it was satisfying. It was also really sad. Like I really cared about, we got really close and you're with these people so long. And it was just, we were in like old age makeup. Like it was really, you could really feel the conclusion of it. And it was a sad day, but we stay in touch. We all stay in touch.
It was still like, I wasn't shocked it was good, but you just kind of think at this point, you just expect the finale is always to let you down a little bit. You're like, oh my God, it's quite funny.
My favorite thing about that finale though, is the fact that at her funeral, the only thing that was celebrated was her outfits.
Yep.
Because all of her dresses were around the coffin. Because that was all that's all that people really knew about her was her clothes.
Oh my God. Last thing. This is the first or second movie I ever reviewed on this show.
Second movie, I believe, after Emoji Movie.
We reviewed a movie for a test podcast. We didn't hit record. We reviewed it again. You were in it. What was it like? You've done Veep, Arrested Development. You had a Michael Bay script with Transformers. What is that has to be as polar opposite and as different as anything there is in the world.
See, well, in the fact that screenwriting is so much better in a Michael Bay script compared to anything Veep or Arrested Development, I'm sure, right?
I think I maybe worked 3 days on that. And they had all the action, months and months and months. And then I just kind of come in and quirky science guy. I was in a room the whole time. Michael Bay was directing me and I was just like, and then I kind of left. But they worked their asses off for like action. I was coming. I'm like, all right, I'm going to look at a monitor and then say some things and move on. So I don't really feel like I was very much that part of it. Like I didn't do anything, but it was kind of cool to be part of.
You wish you would have been able to go back and have robot fights with Mark Wahlberg. I feel
100%. 100%. One day.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was an absolute blast.
Thanks, guys.
Development Veep, 2 of my favorite shows ever. But
nice.
9 days in theaters. Check that out. And then on Disney Plus finale, Mysterious Benedict Society. This has been a blast. I'm about to go tweet you the Jeremy Piven and thing.
Please. Please.
It's just beautiful.
And anything else you can think of, let me know.
I'm going to tweet you the website. We're just going to send you everything.
Good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, man.